Yo, what is up everybody? Welcome back to a brand new video. This is going to be a weekend video. Now, one video I had requested a little bit while ago, that's not even proper English, I do be knowing English, is that what is the Summon Symbiote like now that he is not OP in the Cosmic Horror Quest, and we can now test him into various different bits of content, and that's what we're going to do in this video. So what I've lined up is a little bit of a test platform for him. We're going to be doing mainly stuff that he's actually allowed in, because here's the thing, he's not allowed in variants where variant 1 is the name of the game. Not variant 4 is the name of the game, but that one is like, yeah, I can use this 1 star in this particular content. No, you can't. So we're going to a little bit of a test in stuff like Act 5. We're also going to be doing a little test in some Cavalier difficulty, in Uncollected, and also just talk about like what he loses, because he does actually lose some major bits of kit, which is actually pretty sad. And then we're going to round off with some tests in some other areas. Oh yeah, Labyrinth for Legends. I'm going to test in Labyrinth for Legends. So we're going to roll that footage in a moment. Now the champion itself does have some really kind of like fun usages. In particular, a variant 5, Blood and Venom. And you can use this in the last sections, I want to say, because it's like hashtag Symbiote. So that's really good. There is something that you can use this champion for. The same thing if you still have the champion right now, and you can use him in the likes of Act 5. So if you are looking for an alternative option in Variant 5 to use the Summon Symbiote, then he can be used there. One thing I should mention is that he's very paper thin. So if you kind of like go, oh, I've made a little mistake here, then, oh, I'm taking damage through the block. This means I'm going to have to parry and well-timed block every single time. Otherwise, I'm going to see a multitude of damage my way. Yes, you're going to have to be very careful. But he still slays in the also great way that, you know, we know him. So, yeah, I mean, that is good. I mean, look, we're doing a live play right now. So it is good to see the champion in effect in this kind of content. So if you do have it, I mean, you're like, oh, I need an option for Variant 5, which I should, at some point, I will get around to doing all of those old guys, redoing them with current meta champions, but, you know, that's a lot of work. I think that's going to take me a good chunk of next year to get updated with all my guides. But you can see the rate of damage is quite impressive. I think more so when it comes to, like, the bleed elements of things than ever, and getting luck and rotation. And this is the thing that we need to talk about in a second, just as I finish up this fight. There is a bit of bad news when it comes to this lovely little Steve, and the fact, like, okay, great, we get to keep him, he's forever, we get to have him for keeps. But there is something missing. And that's right here. So you can just see right here on the ability standpoint, I'm not able to activate any of those lovely pre-fight abilities that we had in Cosmic Horror. And that's just one of these things about this champion. I'm sure Kabam will return back to this to run a similar type event. You know, if anybody from Kabam is watching, like, Cosmic Horror, big thumbs up. Well done, that was a great bit of content. Especially because a lot of the content that's been produced by Kabam in the last couple of months has been some of the worst that has come out of the development line. Please come back in 2020 and be better. That's kind of like what I really want to say. But you have done something good, Kabam, this year in doing Cosmic Horror. I had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed making guides and information around it. And players enjoyed it as well, especially having a free 1-star champion that they could rank up. Yes, the process may be a little bit long-winded in order to get it, but still, you know, I've seen more positive than I've seen negative in this. But yeah, as I said, like, the problem is we don't get no Devour, we don't get no Infect, we get no Adapt, and we get no Leech or Enrage or even any of that Annihilate. Yeah, all of that stuff is just not there, and that's the biggest problem. Like, the champion is good, and it is an extra champion and does great damage to a degree that we saw in that fight there, and kind of like doing some of this lower variant. But it's other areas where it just doesn't tick boxes, especially with a lack of utility, which I'm looking at here like, no utility for this champion's all gone. But as I said, there are opportunities for this to be used elsewhere. Let's have a look at it in some other content now. So variants aside, let's check out Act 5. Act 5 is actually a really good testing platform. If you've got the champion and looking to take through a lot of Act 5 and need something that is able to ping in a good amount of damage, you can see here we're going up against Breakthrough, which I think is something like 5.1.2 or something like that. In any case, like, it is good to see a champion that's able to rotate very quickly around debuff damage, also be relatively potent for what is a 1-star champion that acts really as a 565 champion, or maybe like a rank 4 5-star champion. Maybe I'm being a bit too ahead of the game. But the thing is, it's all about the utility factor. If you just need something to do damage dealing, then hey, if you got the Summon Symbiote and picked him up when he went live into game, then you're going to have a really cool option to then take on different bits of content. Mainly for like an assisting lane clearer at most, and maybe in some cases a boss kind of interaction based champion. And it can be, you know, a relatively alright fit. It's just the biggest problem is not having any of those pre-fights, so I can't really take on that, that lovely unstoppable Colossus. What about other content? Well, he can't exactly do Act 6 because, hey, let's face it, he's not a 5-star based champion. That kind of provides some limitations to the champion being acceptable usage in various different areas. So, yeah, that kind of provides a problem. But there are other options. I'm not going to say that, you know, it's doom and gloom. Because you do have, like, well, you could say monthly difficulty. And this is a fight right here. I believe this is Epic. No, Epic. This is Uncollected. This is Uncollected from last month. And I wanted to kind of like see where the potency lies with this. But again, like, you know, from an Uncollected standpoint, this does feel to me that it kind of acts as a 565 champion. Maybe even a case of a little bit more potency. Especially like each hit doing a good amount of damage. And especially if there was like any kind of bleed that I could do, then from a champion that doesn't have anything to it when it comes to utility that we lose from the pre-fights, at least you say is, you know, relatively potent enough. Even here, like an example, going up against a Sentinel, which is and one previously, or any kind of bleed immune champions, he's still able to do something that is relatively impressive for me, that is, and it's good to see. Now, taking them against any kind of like bosses and having something like uniqueness about it, it's just not there. You're not saying like extra potency for a debuff, except for bleed debuff, and yeah, at least say he's got maybe got like the Fury. So it's just good to see an alright champion. It kind of like works. I'm just trying to think of like other examples that Summon Symbiote would actually work as, because it's like a champion that occasionally gains buffs, is relatively potent on the damage, has got some good like ticking debuff damage. Something springs to mind. What would spring to mind right here? I wouldn't say new Hawkeye buff. I wouldn't say a little bit, not exactly like Hyperion, but in a case like you can get buffs and you can also do a high amount of like damage with debuffs. I'm just trying to think of a good example. Maybe like Black Widow Deadly Origin, I think, is probably an adequate comparison. But yeah, it's still really good. From other content standpoint, like where do you kind of like go for this champion's usage? And that again is a problem because of like the restrictive nature. You could use him in some other variants. I mean, look, we've said about this variant 4 where you kind of go like the 1-star. Like, why haven't Kabam allowed him to be used in there? It is a champion that is able to have a Fury buff rotation. You could also use him in incursions. I kind of like thought about, well, incursions could be a good option. But I'm not going to test out a 1-star just yet. Especially the Summon Symbiote, which, as I said, operates differently. But having the time and the patience to use that and kind of test it out has to take a bit of time. Also, I don't want to scare anybody if I decide to bring in a champion and go like, oh, here is my 1-star Summon Symbiote. Are you afraid? Be very afraid. But you know, like Labyrinth for Legends. Okay, so I thought like for this video, I wasn't going to take him into Abyss because I just don't think that's going to be a good enough test. With the extent of hits that you have to do in order to get Abyss done, like what is it, like 240 hits before you're kind of like done for, you're just not going to see anything done by the Summon Symbiote. And that's where the kind of the line is drawn with this champion. Yeah, in some ways it looks like it could act as a 565 base champion in its kind of like damage potential, but at the same time, this is just something that wasn't being as potent as I would like, and this is where again like the extent of the champion is I can't really compare it to Black Widow Deadly Origin, especially because in the length of time with those amount of hits, I could more than likely, which I have done in the past, just absolutely slayed with Black Widow Deadly Origin. If I did that 300 hits, it probably would have been a case that I would have done a lot more damage with that champion versus like this champion, especially with the ticks. So I'm just trying to think of like a champion that's kind of like has some elements of buffs it can occasionally trigger, does a good amount of the bleed damage or kind of like a tick damage, and isn't ultimately boring to play. I think it's like Old Man Logan kind of like elements, but I think Old Man Logan would probably do more damage. Either way, I kind of like, after about 300 hits, a few hits on me, I'm just like, do you know what? I am just quite bored of this, especially because it's not very... What's the word? It doesn't relieve you any punishment if you get smacked by Red Hulk. And look, you know, if it evades, it's gonna evade. If it's gonna smack you, it's gonna smack you. It's gonna smack you, not spank you. Well, it is gonna do that. That's let's be brutally honest. It will do that to you. But yeah, like, here's the thing with the Summon Symbiote. It is a good champion. But I think it's one of these things where if you're looking for an option for some hashtag symbiote based things, and you could even use this in Cavalier difficulty this month. I haven't tried it yet, but I am interested to kind of like go back to it and see what it could do. But in Cavalier, when I tested this out, it just didn't, like, it was just a case like, you know, it's a hit and you're done. You had to well time block everything, you had to parry everything in order to withstand the force of nature coming in with it. But yeah, that has been quite a fun little dissection type video there of the Summon Symbiote in other content. Hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe for more. Have a lovely weekend, whatever you're doing. Check out some other content located on screen. Big week next week when it comes to the anniversary. Look forward to posting loads of content. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye for now.